Tipton.
Here.
And Ward number 3, McNeil.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the agenda, are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
I would like to make an adjustment to the title of H12. It's the resolution to assess the utility charge. It's actually a nuisance abatement charge, not a utility charge.
And under department heads, we'd like to add a B. Linda would like to discuss 4th of July plans.
All right. So with those two changes, is there a motion to approve? Lieber with the first.
Second.
And Spear with the second.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Lieber?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Boots?
Yes.
All right, so the agenda has been approved, and we'll move to the communications. There are no scheduled communications, so if anybody would like to address the city council, please make your way to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Seeing as there are none, we'll close that portion of the meeting and move on to the consent agenda. And these can be enacted with one motion. They are the city council minutes, the approval of the city council minutes from February 20th, approval of the development director's report from February of 19, approval of library minutes from January of 19, approval of library director's report from January of 19, approval of liquor license renewal from Walmart, and the approval of the claims list. Do any of these need to be pulled out? Seeing there is none, is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Anderson with the first, and Lieber with the second.
Spear?
Yes.
Lieber?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes.
Boots?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
All right, so we have two public hearings on our agenda. The first one is the purpose of soliciting written and oral comments on the city's proposed fiscal year 1920 budget. Is there a motion to open this public hearing?
So moved.
Spear with the first and Lieber with the second.
Lieber?
Yes.
McNeil? Boots?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
All right, I'll turn it over to Melissa and Brian.
As far as I know, the city has not been notified of any concerns for the proposed budget.
Same with you, Brian.
That's right.
Does the council have any questions over the budget for the? All right. Seeing there, are there any oral?
Yes. I have just a few questions, a couple things I want to make sure I'm clear on. And Melissa, I think, can answer these pretty easily. Under your budget statement here, transfers in and transfers out, do they include the utility transfers? Is that included in those transfers? That number is, okay. So the $597,769 is in the transfers into the revenue cycle. How does it get into the transfers out? That's transferred out of the utility, out of the electric department, or out of the utility departments.
Right.
So that's where it shows up as being transferred out. Then you transfer it back into the general fund through the transfers in. Okay, so that's 7% of the utilities. So then the under charges for services at $8,425,247. Is the total charges for utilities or for services, I guess, included other services, minus the pilot transfers? So in other words, those numbers, that pilot transfer, $597,000 has been deducted from that already?
The pilot transfers would be recorded in the transfer cycle.
Right, so they're not included in the charges for services, even though that's where they were collected.
I can get you official details. I guess I wish you would have contacted me and I could have looked at my spreadsheets. So
No, but
rolling off the top of my head.
this is just you can't count it twice.
Correct. And I'm not.
The utilities collected those pilot fees. The pilot was collected by the utilities, and the rest of the utilities are listed under charges for services, I assume. And so that charges for services would be minus the transfers for the pilot. It almost has to be because we've got it already recorded in the transfers there. So, I mean, that's, I'll double check with you on it, we can verify that.
Sure.
So, okay, that pretty much clears up that part of it. Question on your local option sales tax transfers. And it looks like you transferred, here it is, from local option sales tax, $134,000, which is the amount the city collected under local option sales tax. 25% went to economic development. Now, the other two portions, 25, it's supposed to be 25%, is supposed to go to property tax relief, so where?
So it's going into the general fund, that finance and administration, that's where that's going. That
Okay.
620 account,
So
that's
that,
the 25%.
that is how you account for property tax relief, is by putting it in the general fund.
Correct.
I don't know how that directly affects property tax relief, but maybe you can explain that further to me sometime too, okay?
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure I understand how that is directly property tax relief. It looks like it's just putting it into the general fund for additional spending. Debt service, supposed to get 50%. And, I'm sorry, 50% was supposed to go to community improvements to include street, sewer improvements, park, recreation improvements, and Main Street infrastructure improvements. That's where 50% was supposed to go. And it looks like you've taken 50% of that and put it into debt service. So I don't know quite how that ties in with what the purpose of the local option sales tax was. I don't see that fitting the stated purpose of the local option sales tax. As a taxpayer, as someone that voted for a local option sales tax, when I looked at this, I thought, okay, good, we're gonna spend 50% of that money, put it in the streets, sewers, recreation, and Main Street improvements. But I don't see that happening with this debt service. Put it in the debt service. I don't see it directly happening as it's stated in the local option sales tax purposes. Those are my points that I wanted to bring up. And I'll get with you a clarification on a couple of things, and you can explain to me
Perfect.
the rest of that.
All right.
Melissa,
Yeah.
the types of debt service that is being paid for include what?
Community improvement, streets improvements.
All right. If there's no other comments or questions for this specific public hearing, I'll ask for a motion to close it.
Second.
Boots with first and Spear with second.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
All right, our second public hearing is regarding the proposed plans and specs, form of contract, and estimated cost for the 2019 street improvement project. Is there a motion to open this hearing?
So moved.
Boots with the first and McNeil with the second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
Yes.
All right, so, Brian?
I haven't had any official input, but late this afternoon, I had input from somebody who didn't want me to share her name. Typically, I might not pass it on, but I think it's something worth mentioning. And that is on the project on West Fourth, from basically just west of Swan and Rose over to Orange Street. She wants us to make sure that we go all the way through the intersection of Orange. I assume that's in the plan, but I just wanted to mention that.
I think it is in the plan.
All right. Any questions for Brian or Steve? Any comments from the public? Seeing there is none, is there a motion to close this hearing? Sorry.
Second.
Anderson with the first and Spear with the second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
Yes.
All right, so now on to new business, which is, the first one is a resolution approving the City of Tipton fiscal year 1920 annual budget. Melissa?
That's exactly what it is. As you see in the resolution details, I outlined the transfers, as well as cash transfers, which is what we talked about last time, where it's going to be reflected in the state report, but I said it would be reflected on the resolution. So that is on there as well.
I appreciate that.
All right, any questions for Melissa or Brian? Seeing there is none, is there a motion to pass this budget?
So moved.
Lieber with the first and McNeil with the second.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
All right, so the second one, which is a resolution to assess abatement, nuisance abatement charges due to non-payment by a property owner. Brian?
Yeah, and it's just that, there was a property that the owner didn't take care of. The city hired someone to provide that service, and the amount came to $1,051.
All right. Any questions or discussion? Seeing there is none, is there a motion to approve? Boots with the first and Anderson with the second.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots,
Yes.
All right, so now to the third one, which is a resolution approving the proposed plans, specs, form of contract, and estimated cost of the 2019 street improvement project. Brian, Steve, either one?
This has three divisions, but it has, the plans and specs are constructed to allow the council 4 alternates. Alternate 1 is 6th and 7th Streets. Alternate 2 is alternate 1 plus 4th Street. Alternate 3 is alternate 1 plus Sycamore Street. And alternate 4 is all of them. Division 1 has an estimated cost of just under $197,000. That's for the labor. That's not including engineering. Division 2, well, I should say, Division 1 is West 6th and West 7th. Division 2 is that section of West 4th. That's just under $80,000 estimated. And Division 3 is Sycamore Street, and that is estimated at just over $74,000. The bid opening is scheduled for 11 o'clock on March 28th.
Are we looking for a specific surface type? Whether it's concrete or asphalt?
Do you want to take that?
I think these are all asphalt overlays. Probably a one-time over with a grinder and two-inch asphalt lift. I haven't read the specs on that yet. That's what we talked about though. No concrete. Brian, we didn't talk
No.
about concrete in any of this.
No, but I think West 7th was supposed to be 4 inches.
2 4-inch.
4 inches total anyway.
Yeah, 2-inch, I'm sorry, 2-inch lifts, they put it down 2 inches at a time. So, I think that's the way all of them,
Yeah, I think that's right.
so, are. I'll check that spec though
All right,
tomorrow.
just checking. If there's no other questions, is there a motion to approve this plan? Boots with the first.
But
Whoop.
so I'm sorry, are we approving all 3 divisions then? with
The
this?
plans and specs, yes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
looking at this breakout, it's all hot mix asphalt, and it appears that it's 4 inches.
All right, thank you. And
I'll second. Or,
Lieber with the second.
Spear,
yes.
Leeper, McNeil, Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
All right, number 4, which is discussion of possible action concerning an update on the bid results for the James Kennedy Family Aquatic Center project. And we have a guest from HBK.
So Brian, in your packet, Brian included the bid tab that we received from the two contractors that we accepted bids from. As you tell by the bid tab, they were both over the estimate. The low bid was Sheets Construction, and the low bid was $596,000, roughly $100,000 over what the estimate was. Some of the reasons Brian had me check, I called, we had 8 contractors pull drawings and specifications. 3 of them basically responded that they did not have time to get the job done or bid the project, and it was a bad time for them during that summer months. The other 2, I did not get a response from them why they did not bid the project. I have been in correspondence with Dave Sheets, the owner of the construction company, and Greg, who's their superintendent. And we went back, and I sent this to Brian also. I believe this is also in your packet. We went back to Sheets and asked them if there was some value engineering that they could come back to us with, some options of how to get the cost down lower so it's a little bit more palatable to the city. And of those VE items, value engineering items that they come up with, and I'll run through them, but it basically was $1,700 for changing of the way the duct work is hung from the ceiling, $11,500 on the factory startup warranty, $350 on spare fan belts and rooftop filters, $16,000, $450 for a 5-year warranty on the compressors, delete the fabric ductwork and reuse existing was a deduct of $15,400. Change the jacketing was another, on the insulation of the roof was another $1,920. Delay the installation contractor on the ductwork until July 7th of 2070, and leave the existing and/or controls of $7,000, which is the building control systems that Virgil uses to control all the 2 different systems within the building now. And the other one was to deduct the payment and performance bonds in the project with $6,000 savings. And the last one was to leave the existing doors in place and just go through them until they retrofit them out. And that was a savings around $15,000. I read through that pretty quickly, but it's in your packet also. A couple of those that were unacceptable to HBK and our engineering team was to reuse the existing fabric ductwork in the aquatic system, because that is one of the problems. It was not accurately designed to begin with. It's in poor places. We do have those 4 fans on the corners of the building that aren't working. Don't use Virgil's. He's done a fantastic job of keeping that system running what he has so far. And the other one was to leave the existing and/over controls of a deduct of $7,000. And the big reason is that those 2 systems just don't talk together. And the estimate for the new system is closer to $45,000, not $7,000. So we want to be wary that we're getting dollars, the correct value for our dollars when we look at things. So if we took the base bid that Sheets gave us of $500, and I'm just rounding numbers, $596,000, we went through all the alternates that we feel are acceptable. The one I don't know about, Brian, is about the performance bond. I don't know if you do that with contractors or not.
Yeah, if bids are over $25,000, you have to require it.
Right. So if we went through and looked at those alternates and not accepting the performance and payment bond and the one with the fabric work, it brings the bids in at $546,000, which they came basically $50,000 of value engineering that they were able to come up to provide to the project. So that said, you're at $546,960 for the bid that we will try to work with Sheets if the city decides to move forward with that. Some of the reasons the bids were over is when the project was put together, the units that are on the roof are desert air. And for us to put, I'm going to make something up, put a Brian Wagner air handler on the roof and not a desert air, they aren't compatible, they don't speak together. So you're really held to their manufacturing specifications and their equipment to put it on. And they did have a 20% increase after the first year. So we do see an increase in that cost of the equipment. I'll answer any questions. I'm pretty project, so whatever I can do to answer, I'd be glad to.
If the council chooses to rebid, would you do anything differently?
You know, one of the things we talked about with Virgil was the building control systems, and even though they show a deduct to $7,000, it's more in the realm of $40,000. I mean, we could go back to sheets and do that, but we can't change, the building was designed improperly to begin with. I think you're all aware of that. The moisture that we're having in the buildings, it's gonna take 2 desert area units on top. I don't think we changed any of the engineering at all on what we're doing on that.
Not the engineering, the way it was bid. Would you do anything different in the specs?
The only thing we could, if we wanted to make some changes, we could pull out all of the painting. We could pull out all of the work that's in that back hallway where it's just plywood and temporary insulated for now. Maybe we could take that out and just focus strictly on mechanical, electrical, and end up with Brian to try to get the cost down. But those things are just some of the things that we've noticed, that those things need to be attacked. They need to be addressed pretty quickly.
If it was rebid, what do you think would be the proper time to attempt it again?
If you were gonna rebid the project, I'd do it as soon as possible. I would do it in the next 30 days to rebid the project, because when I talked to Adam, he sort of has that time frame. He does shut that pool down at a certain time, so that May time to August is an opportune time to get it done, because then you can use your outdoor pool, and the indoor pool is inaccessible. So if you wanted to try and still rebid it, I would do it in the next 30 days,
Or we're looking at next year?
next year. We just can't, with all the events going on with the school and what Adam went through the schedule, and doing it during the winter time is just, that's impossible. You're on the roof, you're doing all the snow work, it's gotta be doing that construction schedule that you see from May to October. He knows the option tries to do this work.
The sheets have any subs?
Sheets had painting, universal climate control. There might have been a drawer hardware. They only had 3 subs. They were self-performing quite a bit of the work. And they were excellent to talk to. I talked to the owner and I talked to the gentleman that put the bids together. They want this project. It fits in their schedule, their time frame. They were more than willing to come down tonight and talk to it, but I didn't know if that was, correct, since we haven't allowed the bids to go out, so.
I know Mark Sheets. I know his dad, I know his sister. It's a good company, good reputation. I did a couple projects, or they did a couple projects while I was in my former town. Did a good job. So I have no concern about this contractor. Could you walk through the alternates and just summarize those and which ones are the most important in your opinion?
The alternates that we also, yes, you got it. So alternate number 1 was to add the glycol piping. And what that does is, right now the system is not all glycol, so we just put glycol in the system. Glycol does not freeze. It dissipates heat quicker. And these alternates were picked up from sitting down with Virgil and Adam and in correlation with Brian. But these are Virgil works on it. He knows this system better than the back of my hand. He really knows this system. He's done a lot of work on there to keep the system up. Alternate number 2 was add the heat tracing, and that basically is part of the building control system, so that it's fairly simple. It gives him, he'll be able to pull up the computer and he'll be able to actually see the temperature changes in the piping, so that he can react to problems quicker than the problem showing back up. So that's one of the alternates we looked at. Alternate number 2 was to add the ductwork insulation, and both contractors, one bid $31, the other one bid $29. That's a pretty simple one to pick up. That's basically what's happened is the ductwork on the roof has taken some damage from animals, weather. It's actually lifted off the ductwork. There's ductwork on the ceiling that is totally uninsulated. So this is a pretty simple add to reconsider. The alternate number 4 was to add some interior roll-up doors to the building. I've been in there quite a few times in the last year and a half with Adam, and especially in January, December, when that north wind howls, those 2 north doors. I've had a couple ladies in the pool come over to me and ask me, young man, do you feel that draft? And I go, yes, I feel that draft. So we talked about adding a couple of roll-up insulated doors on the existing doors to try and keep some of that draft away from the patrons. And the cost that we got on those was about $3,900 a piece, just in case you wanted to look at any doors who wanted to do it. Alternate number 5 was something that we worked with Adam on, and this is normally in his budget, but we wanted to add it into the contract, or at least get an alternate on it, in case we were under bid, and that was to paint the pool. That's normally what he does during the year, but we thought if we were under budget enough, we could use some of those dollars to do that pool area. And the same thing with alternate number 6, was to remove and recaulk the entire pool area. That's also in Adam's budget, but we thought we'd add it into the project to see how it correlates to just having a subcontractor. Sometimes when you bulk alternate these up, you get better pricing from the subcontractors, so we'll want to look at that and see how that works with Adam's budget. Alternate number 7 was a pretty big one. It was over $200,000. The units that are on the rooftop are use a refrigerant that is being phased out in the next 7 to 10 years. Not that it's not going to be made, but it's going to be phased out. New units that are being built are using a different refrigerant. So this was to change the units on the rooftop and to put all new units on the rooftop, including the existing ones that we have. Virgil was in the bid letting. We reached out to him and we checked, because he had some leaks in the past. The problem was is the system is overheating because it's not designed properly, so he has to put a lot of refrigerant in it. And they think he told us a pallet of refrigerant was around $1,200 or $1,400. He thought that would last him a couple of years. These units are not being, they're still usable. There's lots of them everywhere. The University of Iowa, every school you can think of, every building has R12 in it. They're not going to phase it out. This was just an option that Desert Air wanted us to look at, to put new units in and to make more sales on their end, probably a little bit. Does that make sense? I know I talk quick, but
Melissa and I talked about this a little bit. If the council wanted to accept a bid that goes beyond the remaining money for the aquatic center, we talked about where, well, in her opinion, the most logical place to draw it from.
Was, we looked at the ballot, the lost ballot, and it does allow for, James Kennedy Aquatic Center it's on there as well, so that's another option that additional funds would come from.
I have a question about the door hardware and seals. What would that look like instead of, because the bid was for new doors, right? And then how would that look differently?
so that's one thing Adam asked us to do, was price out new doors. So the doors that are existing now are all aluminum frame, thermal insulated glass. You would not, if you walk through, you would not see a difference except for the draft. So we had a contractor, I met a contractor over here on Thursday, and basically he feels that those doors, the frames, the hinges, everything are in very, very good shape. The door closures are rusted because the water has ruined them basically. But by putting new doors and seals, he thought we could be around $4,000, $5,000 and redo all the seals and all the overhead doors. So you would not, from new doors to existing doors, you would not see a difference, you would feel a difference.
And
The insulated glass would not change. It's the same U value from those doors to new doors.
we could get basically the same thing just by updating the hardware and the seals,
Yes.
is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I guess if I threw out an opinion, know, for the ones that didn't have time, I'm not sure how you getting it in the next 30 days is gonna make that better. I think you're looking at either doing a project now or waiting until next year. And I don't know in a year if those are gonna get any better.
I've been on the road quite a few times with Adam. 3, 4, 5 times I've been on the roof, we've chased squirrels out from underneath the roof. And that's how bad that roof is up on top. And that's about $160,000 to $180,000 of this project is the roof. So it's basically taken all the rubber off. I mean, Virgil has taken the compressors, which look like big air tanks. I mean, you're bigger than a compressor at home. He has them on the roof, weighing the rubber down. Because in the windstorm, the rubber will lift off 2 to 3 feet off the roof. It's not adhered anymore. And the insulation has basically been pulled off the roof. It's standing up about like this with the rubber going over it. So the insulation, the deck is not insulated. Waiting another year, yes, you can do it. But the squirrels came out from the scupper holes. 2 of them came out from underneath where they had nests. So the roof is in pretty bad shape. So that's just my opinion, so I'm here to help.
One question on the refrigerants. Changing out these refrigerants, will they run at lower pressures then for the machinery? Be a thing.
Let me see if I'm understanding is the bid include everything in the alternates or not?
No.
Okay.
There's the base bid, and then the alternates are sort of a la carte.
And the painting the pool room and recocking the pool was in Adam's budget, right?
That's what he told us. He told me that he normally does that during the year, and that was in his budget. We just thought we could try to get a little bit better value for the project.
So that part of it could be still drawn out of the budget.
And the interior doors is that $25,000 is the 4, or how many doors for that 25?
For those
It's for the interior roll-up doors, yeah.
that's
That
each. That's each. So
Yes.
there's 6 of them.
6, okay.
The
And
2
we can-
north ones are the ones that are bad, but my suggestion, get the doors resealed, re-threshold, see if we still have the problem. The door's just not, Adam needs help on just getting the doors to where they work, and once he gets them to work, I'm positive he can take care of them after that point.
All right. Any thoughts from anybody? Feels kind of depressing, but it's kind of
Yeah.
has to be done.
Yeah.
This has been going on for a long time.
Yes.
We really need to start doing something.
And get it all done correctly. And
The issues you're having is that the way that building was built is there's an exterior wall and there's an interior wall, and all that moisture, if you go around the exterior of the building, you'll see some cracking on that exterior wall. That does not affect the structural of the building, the structural's on the inside, but the reason you're getting that cracking is because the moisture's getting in between those 2 panels and freezing is because the HVAC system just isn't keeping up. Virgil basically made a couple of heat exchangers that are laying on the floor in there that has saved the building for years. They're handmade, he should patent them because they work great. But he has really saved a lot of dollars in that building by the work he did there. Kudos to him.
all right, so what's everybody thinking?
Well, by doing nothing, I think we could cause more harm.
Yeah.
Literally.
Get it done.
So base bid, and then does anybody have any thoughts on the alternates?
It sounds like 5 and 6 have a means to be financed or at least help. Now, one more time, alternate 1, 2, 3, and 4, how would you rate them as most important?
Number 3 is pretty simple, it's $29. That's
Total?
total, that's a value, because what they're doing is So number 3 out of the 1, 2, and 3, Brian, I would take that one out of the mix. Of the other 3, I believe that 2 doors on the north side, the 2 roll-up doors would make a lot of sense. Just to keep that north, I mean, the snow was this deep on those doors, and just to help, it would help your heating and cooling. I think your payback on those doors it would probably be in the 8 to 10 year market, which is pretty good return on investment if you get a payback in that 8 to 10 years. These are a fully insulated door. They've been used in this kind of setting before. The glycol system and the heat tracing. The glycol system was really one of Virgil's thoughts because he is having troubles with the heating and cooling on the system. If I would pick the insulation as number 1, of course. I would pick a couple of those doors on the north side, and I would probably go after the glycol system. The heat tracing would probably be the last of those 4, Brian.
So we'd be able to say, we just want 2 of those roll-up doors?
Yep. Yeah, that's the reason we have them priced per each, just to see how we're doing. We're also doing some work in that back hallway where the plywood is. We're redoing that ductwork system in there, because the same lady that called me over the pool told me that it's cold when she comes from the locker room. So I brought that back to Adam, and that's a pretty simple change. The ductwork, the vent is clear at the end by the concession stand. It's not by the walk door. So, but I think you revamp the doors. We get to the project before the contractor leaves. We take a look at it at that time and accept his alternate maybe at that time.
So, the base bid, alternate 3 and alternate 1? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes.
Anybody,
You looking for a motion?
well, or just some thoughts or anything on it?
You're doing 6.5 and 2 doors of 4.
Well, he said, wait on the,
Oh, wait on that.
on the doors.
Okay.
But yeah, the 2 doors, then would be $78.50. If we went that route later. Total. Everybody, take a deep breath and jump into the deep end.
That was good.
Yes.
And hope we can spend longer.
Is there a motion for that? Does that sound? So, I threw it out there as the base bid plus alternate 1 and alternate 3. And then looking at 2 doors later.
And also, that would include the value engineering that we've already
Yeah,
talked about.
yeah.
So,
And taking out,
including the value.
oh yeah, sorry, including that. yeah.
Including those value engineerings, and we can number those, but it's basically there was about $50,000 of PE that we want to take use of.
Yeah. All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Spear with the first,
Second.
and Anderson with the second.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It'll look nice when we get done too. Thank you.
All right, number 5, which is the resolution, not quite a revolution yet. A resolution approving the final plat of Roy's Addition. Brian?
Yeah. This was a single lot with one existing building. It was then divided into 2, which is a simple subdivision. It isn't something that we can approve administratively. It's not a subdivision under our ordinance. But then came the idea to create a lot 3. And if it had started out from the beginning as wanting to end up with 3 lots, we saw it's more of like a minor subdivision. In our ordinance, it says that if it creates 3 lots or less, we can waive the preliminary plat and bring a final plat to the council. Terry Gert and I both reviewed this and thought it was okay. so we're bringing it to you for your consideration.
Are there any questions for Brian? Seeing there's none, is there a motion to approve or deny this final plat? McNeil with the first to approve this resolution, and Leeper with the second.
Leeper.
Yes.
McNeil. Boots.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Spear.
Yes.
Alright, so number 6, which is a resolution approving a grant writing agreement with ECIA for a build-a-grant application for the upcoming Cedar Street project.
Yeah, we became aware of this program when we were re-interviewing IIW, or actually before that, but they did a little presentation on the grant to our interview committee, and that included Tim and Leanne. And then we had another meeting with ECIA present and IIW on the phone. The thing that got us thinking about doing this is that Macokota was awarded one of these, and it was worth $3.8 million to them. Their project is very similar to our project. It's a larger scale project, but it's a cooperative project between the DOT and the city to do a reconstruction of Highway 64 or Platt Street through that town. Ours is just like it in that we have a DOT participation, and it's the same type of project. The main question for the DOT is whether or not they're using state funding or federal funding for their share. The last we heard, they were using state funding. And if that's the case, their money can be used as a match to a grant application that we applied for.
Yeah.
So ECIA has proposed, and I wrote a resolution for it, a grant writing agreement not to exceed $10,000. In Makoka's case, they said that the final cost was around $8,000. But it would be an opportunity to get the project ready through preliminary engineering and then make that part of the application. We'd have to hurry to get to the very next round, which they think would be due, I think, in July. And then there would be, we think, another opportunity, a second opportunity to apply if we don't get the first time. Now, this program is highly competitive. I think they said there were $64 billion worth of applications and $1 billion worth of awards. So there is quite an element of risk. But the interview committee felt that it was worth consideration, especially if we had 2 times at bat with it. And so this is for your consideration.
Are there any questions or comments? All right, is there a motion? McNeil with the first to approve, and Leeper with the second.
McNeil.
Yes.
Boots.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Spear.
Yes.
Leeper.
Yes.
All right, number 7, which is a resolution setting a public hearing regarding the proposed plant specs, form of contract, and estimated cost of the Tipton Downtown Alley Underground Conversion Project.
Yeah. Now, I believe at the end of the meeting, we're going to talk a little bit about alternative meeting dates. And at one point, we've talked for the second March meeting, either being the 18th or the 25th. And then there's a suggested date change in April. The thing that I wanted to ask is if you do move your second March meeting to at least do a special meeting to do this public hearing and consider the plans and specs by resolution. because of the timeline we set for the bidding, and if we disrupt it, I think it might hurt the bidding process. So I would ask that we go ahead and set the public hearing for the 18th. And as far as estimated cost, the engineer told us $125,000 is what he was figuring as the contractor part of it.
All right. Does anybody have any issues with the 18th, having that public hearing and possibly only that public hearing? Is there a motion? Boots with the first and Leeper with the second.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
All right, number 8, which is discussion of possible action authorizing the use of a limited amount of DRIP funds for the Hardacre Theater project, part number 3.
Yeah. This is something that the Hardacre Board considered and would like to pursue. The cost of it is $6,500. $2,000 of it could be eventually refundable. But what it does is it creates, or it approves a consulting agreement between the Hardacre Board and Phoenix Theaters. This is the company that has a number of movie theaters. The one most closest around here is in Dubuque. They would give us various drawings, types of equipment we need, a layout. It has parts for creating an operating budget that we could expect to use. Talks about cinema screen steel framing, front-end drapery, south-end sound dampening curtain. It talks about concession equipment. The Hardacre Board really needs this. They need to know what amount they're fundraising for. We have some estimates on doing the exterior of the building, but we don't really have anything on the interior. And these folks have rehab theaters before, and it's the kind of information that the Hardacre Board could really use. I think for them to pursue this is essential to their fundraising efforts.
Any questions? Is there a motion?
Second.
Leeper with the first and Anderson with the second.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil, Boots,
Yes.
All right, so to number 9, which is discussion of possible action concerning a proposal to allow blade signs in the downtown district.
Yeah, I put a draft ordinance that I used in my previous town. And the recommendation to do this has the same source. The state, the Iowa Economic Development Authority, has a team that will come and evaluate a downtown. And the recommendation that caused me to write this originally is the recommendation that the Development Commission, or the Chamber Board would like to pursue now. And that is, these are projecting signs. They usually project about not more than 5 feet from the front of the building in the downtown district. And it's sort of like a shingle sign that you might have seen for old law offices, for example. The idea of it is when people, especially new people, come to town and they're looking for stores, if the sign is flat against the building, they have to look to either side. If it's a blade sign, they can look down the street. as they're looking at traffic and whatnot. So it's a way to better identify businesses to people who are passing by. This would be limited to the downtown commercial district. The Chamber Board looked at the various requirements that this lays out, and they recommended that we give it to the council to consider. So if this is something that you would favor, we would then bring it back to your next meeting for a first reading.
All right, what do you guys think?
I think it's long overdue.
All right,
That could only benefit people, to the business owners.
all right, is there a motion then?
So,
Lieber with the first and Anderson with the second.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
All right, number 10, which is a discussion of possible action concerning a proposal to replace the city's watch guard firewall.
Our current city watch guard is expiring. It's at its end of life at the end of this month. So this is renewing that, replacing it for a 36-month term. It would be billed monthly to the city. And then once that term is up, we either have the option to, if that's at the end of life, renew to something else or do a year-by-year basis.
All right, is there a motion? I mean, are there any questions first, sorry? Any questions for Melissa? No, is there a motion?
So moved.
Boots with the first and Spear with the second.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil, Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Number 11, which is discussion of possible action concerning the Iowa State University Extension Outreach donation.
This is a follow-up to their presentation from the last meeting. This makes a motion to provide them with $500 to continue with their program.
Any questions or concerns over this? Is there a motion? Lieber with the first and McNeil with the second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
Yes.
All right, number 12, which is discussion and possible action concerning the replacement of garbage totes. Steve?
This is not the first time we've talked about this. It's an annual thing, kind of, as you all know. Originally, when we entered into this automated arm situation with totes, we were told, and I say these things, it's redundant, but I say these things so the public understands too, that we were given a 10-year lifespan on those totes. A lot of them have lived longer than that. Some have had injuries and been severely crippled, so they have been recycled. I think we can probably expect every year to probably purchase 100, 108 is what our normal order is, and fortunately, we don't have an increase this year in the cost of them, so.
All right.
Any questions on, we are just getting the black ones this year, 64-gallon, the middle size garbage and the 96 size garbage. That's where our need is right now.
All right. There's no questions for Steve. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Spear with the first and Leeper with the second.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
All right, so the next one, which is discussion of possible action concerning the purchase of a pothole patcher.
This is something I'm more excited about. I'm talking about garbage cans. But, it's, you know, those of us that work for the public, and especially those of you sitting on those chairs, probably hear it like I hear it, like everybody hears it. It's on the news all the time. You know, potholes are an issue anytime you've got asphalt and you've got winter and moisture. And especially streets that are chip seal streets, once they get moisture, and then they come apart pretty fast. 2 years ago, just as a little history, a company, actually Star Equipment out of Cedar Rapids, Brad Tolan set up the demonstration for us to see this pothole patcher. It's a trailer unit. There's a couple kinds of these in your packet. I'm talking about the one that he has currently. It's a what is it? Crafco. It's a Crafco, and they are the biggest supplier of these kinds of machines in the world. These are solid machines. So he's got one with 110 hours on it. And the demonstration that he put on 2 years ago, I was not able to be there. I was at another deal, and I went by there quick and looked at it quick. Brian Brennan and Clay, I said, you know, you guys take a look at this. I knew at the time that we didn't have funding to do something like that. Knew they're $60,000 or $70,000. I said, no, you guys just look at that. Give us a demonstration. They put a patch down here on Lynn Street. It's still in place, and it still looks good. I'm impressed with that, because when we put cold mix in a hole, we go back the next week, it might not be there. So this system blows the hole out clean. Of course, it's got to be, it's best if it's in the 40-degree range. It blows it out clean, and all the water's out of it, and then they put the hot tack in to get that bonding agent. And then they start filling with a chip and tack mix, and that fills it, and then they put a coat on the top of it. Did any of you have a chance to look at that on YouTube, I think? And the thing that I liked about it is not only those potholes, but you can also do some severe alligatoring in some streets, which eventually becomes big potholes. So there's a little proactive deal with it as well. I know that I got guys that can operate that. I think, like Brad told me, when you use this, you'll get better at it. I mean, initially it might not be as smooth as you want it, but as the guys use it, it'll get better. I was in contact with Brad today. He's got this, another city looking at it. He said, I can hold it for you till tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. I said, well, I'm going to take it to the council, and we're going to talk about it and discuss it. One thing I would really like to see, if we decide to go that way, is would be contingent on them bringing it, since it's a used unit, bring it down, clean it up, bring it down, show us how it operates, and invite the council and Brian, anybody that wants to see this thing work, and see what it can do for us based on that stipulation.
It's gotta be better than anything you're doing now.
We, Ross, we redo and we redo all the time. And I'm probably more frustrated with that than people give me credit for. So
if the demonstration doesn't win us over, we can get out of it.
well, that's what, you know, we can propose that to them, say, hey, it would be contingent, you bring it down and let's operate it. If we don't like it, you know, we're not going with that. Or if it's used and we can't, we don't see that it's doing what we think it should do. I do think, though, with 110 hours on it, if it's taken care of and it's cleaned up, and that should be a pretty solid machine. The new ones, I think, in fact, I don't know, be 70,000 or 72 or something.
Cuts on a little over 10 days, hour twice, you know. But
Yeah.
That's nothing.
I think this is a pretty solid thing. I think it'd be a great investment for the city and for a machine that would help us get a little more life out of some of these roads before we can get to them with overlays. That's my thinking. I don't know if any of you have noticed Lemon Street from 2nd up to 5th on the flat area. Of course, they got a lot of traffic this summer with that street project and that sewer project, but that's coming apart over there. And that was redone in 2002, I believe, before I came. I think it was 2002, maybe somewhere there, early 2000. But I think this machine could patch those areas, and we can get more life out of it, extend that street with something like this. So,
Would we
eventually have to buy the storage for the emulsion?
That's a good question, Brian. The guy that I talked to said, well, this tank's 200 gallon. I think, if I remember right, he said, if you're gonna be serious about that, says you can get a tank and you can store your own and you can buy it cheaper. I think that's basically, that decision would be made on how much volume are you gonna need right away. If you're only gonna need a tank or two, you just go get a tank or two. And I think we can get it from the DOT. Now, I haven't checked that out 100% yet, but that's the machine they used on Cedar Street last summer when they put the chip down and the sand that we got credit for. So, we're not gonna do that again. The bikers don't like it, and I get that too, because I ridden it a lot.
From what I read, the patches can last up to 4 to 5 years, and you can use the machine still all the way down to 20 degrees outside.
That's the stats that, you know, we're all looking at. My discussion with Brad though says if we can demonstrate that in a 40-degree atmosphere, that's a lot better. Some people I've talked to, Brian, say, you know, to really do that right when it's frozen, you really need to heat it up with a burner. Get that so we can get that bonding with the hole and the tack and the new material.
But yeah, but like right now, there's no way with the stuff that you put in there now.
It's a crapshoot. You might get a week out of it, or you might get more. I know that we have filled the same potholes lots of times. Although I will say this too, we have reduced the pothole situation by quite a few just doing South Street.
Mm-hmm.
We will reduce the pothole situation by quite a bit doing 4th and doing 6th. Those two streets are terrible. But I still go back to a lot of other areas in town, intersections that are coming apart, that I think this machine, we can smooth those up and fill them and get a stable surface.
If you get this machine, it's a known fact that when you do a pothole with something like this, you don't have to go back there for 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
It depends on the traffic. But if they'll hold 3 to 5 years, guess what? This whole town, you could start it all over again.
Well,
3
that-
years.
Yeah.
And start all over fixing potholes. They will last longer. That's fact. They last longer.
I was surprised that usually when I've seen tar and chips used, you have to roll it, but not with this.
No,
They're not.
even with all of them.
Yeah. If you look at the video demonstration, they do have a guy there that's smoothing it out with a big squeegee
It's called
pipe.
a loop.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
This is, for me, in Public Works, this is the greatest thing that I have looked at. I knew it was pretty good a couple of years ago, but the cost of it was just beyond what we could even think about. Based on all our other basic needs that we were trying to achieve in Public Works with the equipment.
All
I
right.
think we might be at that point now, though, with this used unit, that we can justify it and do the streets some good with it.
Does this fit in your budget?
That's
Melissa?
Melissa was my savior today on that one.
It will. It'll actually come out of the central garage. When the budget was set up last year, we had set up to do the plow truck, which we purchased, and then gas truck out of central garage. But since gas is purchasing their truck out of their department, that frees up some of that remaining fund. So that'll be able to be used, and then that central garage, the CIP that we did, that'll just shift the future 2021 projects down a little bit. So, yes.
I'm really.
It's good to have her as a
Hey,
friend.
you don't know how I love her.
All right.
When she told me that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's no other questions. Is there a motion?
So move.
So move.
Anderson with the first and Leaper the second to approve. Now, should this come with stipulation for the demonstration?
Bring it on.
Contingent upon a successful demonstration?
Yes.
Can we do it that way?
All right, so Anderson made the motion to approve this contingent on a successful demonstration. Leeper seconded it.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Lieber,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Number
Thank you,
14,
Steve.
discussion on possible action concerning a transformer purchase for the Cedar County Co-op. Lloyd?
Hello. Okay, this is for purchasing a transformer for Cedar County Co-op. They've got a project gonna be going on this spring at the feed mill. They're going to be tearing down some buildings and they're going to be rebuilding. So, we're going to have to feed it a little bit differently than what we do now. Like my synopsis says, this is basically gonna be a pass-through cost. We charge for those now as per our service rules, which was approved in 2015. We've been doing this now for quite a few years. Will be our third year doing this. And I've talked to them about it, and so they're aware. Couple things. If you notice, we got 6 bids. The one that I would recommend that we buy would be the Armco 1000 kVA. If you remember a few years back, probably a couple, I asked to become a member of Resco's buying program. Well, just this $667 that we're going to get back, that paid for the $500 that I spent for us to do that. We're a member forever. So we'll always get that patronage check back. So, the transformer market, those top 3 there, it was pretty close. And, but Resco got it, in my opinion, because of the rebate that we get back from it.
All right. Just to make sure this pass-through is on to the co-op, right?
They will be billed for it.
Just to add to this a little bit. We've had, this is the second occasion where there's been a transformer needed that's been in this general price range. And it's needed, but it's also a sticker shock. And in the one case, we offered to let them pay it in installments over a year. Probably do it again here. But the service rules require us to do this pass-through charge. You might expect that you'll get a request to waive the rules and absorb these costs. So right now, as Floyd mentioned, since 15, these have been your rules. But I just wanted to make you aware, you never know when someone might appeal those rules to the council.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, it's hard to absorb that. Every place I've worked at before, we didn't absorb the cost. We passed it on. Now, granted, those other places, they charge for labor, they charge for everything. So I am eating the labor. So we are giving something to them. So,
All right, so if there's no more questions for Floyd, is there a motion? McNeil with first, and Leeper with the second.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Lieber,
Yes.
McNeil, Boots,
Yes.
All right, on to number 15, which is discussion and possible action concerning the quote from Cypress Engine Accessories to switch natural gas on OP.
okay, we talked about this earlier at the last meeting, and we was gonna try to see when they were in the area, if they could come and save us about $4,000 or $5,000. Well, thankfully, or not thankfully, but due to the Iowa and Nebraska weather, that threw a wrench in the works, and now we're gonna have to, pretty much pay the exact quote. And I did follow follow up with him to make sure that the price is still going to be the same. And it is, it's $14,988.13. Like the synopsis says, this is for making the final adjustments and buying a couple of small parts that go on the west end of the engine that time the two fuel racks. When we switch over from diesel fuel to natural gas, you throw that lever, and what it does is it spins that, it takes that rod and changes it like this, and it goes on to natural gas, and that's where the 70-75% mixture is. And what had happened in the past with this engine was the previous mechanic, he would go over there and fiddle with every injector to get it so that it would work and balance. This way, we should just be able to just throw it over and you don't have to fiddle with it. It will be, you know, it would do it before, but we have a feeling that there's just too much wear in this rod, and it just won't take all the loads. So this should fix that problem and make it so that we can run it a lot cleaner. It'll improve the oil analysis results, less pollution, and plus we're going to get to run on 70 to 75% natural gas, which will lower the operating cost of the engine.
All right. Is there any questions for Floyd? Seeing there are none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Lever with the first, and McNeil with the second.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil, Oops,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
All right, thank you, Floyd.
Thank you very much.
Number 18, discussion of possible action concerning B-Tierra seating outside. Did I move one? Did I lose one? Oh yeah, sorry, 16. Discussion of possible action concerning the revolving fund loan application for Tiffany's Tipton Bakery. Linda.
Hello. So we received the application from Tiffany for a walk-in freezer, and met with one of the financial advisors. He said this is why we have the revolving fund. This is a classic example. And to secure that, he had suggested several things, and that would be that we would write the check directly to Star Equipment. I have a signed document from their bank that states they do not have any hold on any equipment in that building now or after. So that equipment is all theirs currently. They own that equipment. There's no hold on any of that. And so the city of Tipton would be first for that freezer. And it would, to help guarantee, our financial advisor said that's why I would like the city to write the check, because if for some reason it would ever have to go to court, you have lots of documents to show that you are indeed the owner of that walk-in freezer. The bakery is a business in Tipton that brings us a lot of other business. And they are working very hard. Not only are they going to be getting a walk-in freezer, they're going to be getting additional new equipment in that building. They're trying to do as much as they can to get things up to date, and the equipment that they have there is outdated. And so it was the recommendation of the commission then to bring forth that the amount that I have is $26,879.43, the actual cost of that freezer, that you consider that amount for the
All right.
bakery.
Any questions for Linda? Is there a motion? Lever with the first and Spear with the second.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Oops, Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
All right, number 17, just discussion and possible action concerning the beautification of the green space next to Among Friends.
Well, this is something that we've needed for quite a while. And so what I'm requesting just at this time is if one or two council members and or the mayor would like to be part of a committee, that we look at this area, possible seating downtown as well. You know, we need flowers in there. There's lots of things that we need to look at for this area, that we get started and we can work on phases. This year we can have maybe phase 1, whatever is decided, but we need to get that area utilized for our downtown, so our residents and visitors have a place that they can sit, maybe go to Tiffany's Bakery and grab a donut and a drink and eat in there. But I'm just wondering if I could have some volunteers now. We all know I am gonna try to apply for a couple of grants, but we know how that works too. There's never a guarantee that you're gonna get those monies. So I have allocated, I too work with Melissa, and there is some money allocated that we could start with the first phase. And I think it will, I know our downtown businesses, because the chamber is very excited about this as well. So I'm just bringing forth to see if I have any volunteers that would be willing to help. So Dean and Ross, what I will be doing is I will be, and the mayor, I will be sending an email, and we also have some chamber board members that are interested as well. So we will get those meetings set up, and I'm hoping at maybe the next council meeting, we'll have some of them, a little bit of a plan to lay down to show you what we're gonna be doing.
All right, so you don't need.
I don't, I
you
have
just
my
were looking for
volunteers.
names. Yep.
I'll hold you to it.
Then number 18, which is the discussion of possible action concerning the Tierra seating outside.
Yes, this is a one-time deal. The chamber is just trying to do something different. You know, one of the topics of discussion is people like to eat outside in the summer. So I had met with Nemo at Tierra and asked, we have music downtown, would you be willing for the chamber to set up some tables and chairs? We'd rope off those areas, and would you be willing to serve outside? And they said yes. I also talked to Lisa, because I wanted to make sure with the police department this was something that, you know, I could be guided on, and she was very much in agreement with that. Chamber members would be around that evening to also monitor what's going on, making sure things are in order. They would be setting up and taking down the tables because they are going to be the ones that are buying them. And maybe at some point we'd be rotating some tables and chairs downtown to add a little flair, you know, of what's going on in the summer months to get people outside and into restaurants.
All right. Any questions for Linda? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Booth with the first and Spear with the second.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil.
That's going to be great.
Thank you.
That'll be
Linda.
June 6th. Thank you.
All right, so now we are down to garbage exemption on 532 East 4th Street, number 19. This one meets the requirements, 532 East 4th. Is there any questions regarding this exemption? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Spear with the first and Leeper with the second.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil. Boots,
Yes.
All right, and then we have a second garbage exemption at 55 Meridian. And this one meets the requirements too, right? Amy? All right, so this one meets the requirements. If there's no questions or comments, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Anderson with the first and Leeper with the second.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
All right, so now we're down to 21, which is the discussion of possible action concerning proposal to change the city hall office hours. Melissa?
Back in April of last year, we added an additional payment option for utility customers where they could go and make their utility payments online. So you'll see there was a chart in your packet that showed that we've had a steady increase in customers utilizing that option. And in addition to that, they can use our Dropbox, they can stop in and pay, they can call by phone. There's a lot of, they can do online pay through their bank, so there's quite a few other options that they can utilize as well, besides just coming into City Hall. And then if there's anything that needs to be sent back and forth or forms filled out, there's been a lot of email communication with Deb and Cindy as far as doing that for people who work outside of Tipton who can't get into City Hall during our business hours. So this is a proposal to adjust our office hours from 7:30 to 4. In that last half hour, we don't have a ton of traffic. And with the additional payment options, we have a lot of options for them that really, there's not a reason that they can't make their utility payment. It wouldn't affect them. And it would also, if there is someone who comes in and wants a meter read out, we can't do that until the following business day because other city businesses or departments are closed at 4. So we'd have to wait till the following day anyways to contact the electric department or whatever the case may be. So this is just aligning with the electric department, public works department, the gas, and as well as the courthouse too. So the only change that this would have would be City Hall staff would have a half-hour lunch now, and they're all okay with that. Otherwise, we're still open for lunch hour, and that shouldn't affect anything. Are there any questions?
There are no questions. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Boots with the first and Leeper with the second.
Leeper.
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
Boots.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Spear.
Yes.
All right, so now we're down to the reports, the mayor's report. I have nothing to report. Council reports.
Mayor, there's one thing
Yes.
that I would like to make the council aware of. Some circumstances are developing, and I'm planning to submit my resignation in April. Having said that, however, there's some unfinished business with that, and if that should change, then I would not be planning on that, so that could change. But as things become more certain, then I plan to let you guys know and give it a definite time frame.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yes. Thank you for the early warning. Committee reports, city manager's report.
I have 3 things I'd like to mention. First is just a special thanks to Melissa for her work on the budget.
Thank you.
Second, before the March 18th meeting, and that would be at least for that public hearing, I've scheduled a consultation meeting on the annexation of that section of Old Muscatine Road. It's part of the process. It's still early in the process. It's a long process with a lot of steps. But I've already been told by the supervisors that, of course, they're not opposed to it, but they expect to have one member here. I also have to inform the chair of the township trustees and the Region 10 regional planning affiliate in Cedar Rapids. That's a transportation organization. So that'll be at 5 before the March 18 meeting. And then last, I wanted to ask if the council would entertain the idea of coming in at 5 before the April 1st meeting for a work session. The topic, Melissa's more versed on it than I am, but we have an uneven policy when it comes to accounts that have more than one meter. Some are charged for each meter, some aren't. And we want to get the council's take on where to go from here, because I believe there are around 50 such situations, so you're bound to hear from somebody if your decision goes one way or another. So we just wanted to see if you would entertain the idea of a work session where we can give you more information than we typically get during the regular meeting. So I guess I would throw that idea. Would that work?
Works for me.
Okay. Okay. That's all I have.
sorry, yeah, Melissa, I'm sorry.
Okay. This is for
You should be her friend.
Yeah.
the second meeting in April is currently scheduled for April 15th, and Amy and I are at a conference the prior Thursday and Friday before that, so we're requesting to see if the council would be okay moving it either to the 22nd or the 29th, whichever one works better for everyone.
Either one.
Say where to pencil it in.
You want to do the 22nd?
Don't be tricking us.
Monday after Easter and stuff.
Right.
Hopefully I'll be here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be here.
And then, so for the March meeting, would you have a preference? I know the mayor is gone on the 18th. Would you prefer to push that one back then, to do the regular meeting on the 25th and then just do a special meeting on the 18th? Or do you want to do it all on the 18th?
Yeah, that would make sense, that too.
That's completely up to you. If everyone's okay.
Well, yeah, okay. So the whole regular meeting will
Full
be
meeting
on
on
the
the
18th.
18th?
Yep, no like that. All right, other department heads? Now we're to you, Linda, on the fourth.
Well, I just wanted to give you an FYI. Met with the committee, and one of the things that we discussed this year, and I've watched it the last couple of years, is a lot of money is donated for activities that go on in the park. And the last 2 years, not very many people have participated. And so it's a lot of money that is not being spent well. So what we decided was we would still have the 5K run and walk. And Dale Jedlicka asked if we would look also at the parade time because it's so close. So we did. We'd like to set the parade at 11 o'clock. I also talked to our fire chief about that to see if he had any problems. He did not. That would also help the people in Cedar Bluff because that's always been a concern. It's pretty close. When we had our 10 o'clock parade, I believe they had their 9 o'clock parade and people were not being able to participate in both. And I just kind of want to get along with everybody, that there is the participation. I have also contacted the fair board to see if we can have the fireworks out there. Their meeting is the 13th, and they will let me know. As far as those that will be doing the fireworks, we've also talked to the fire chief about that, and he's going to be getting back to us. So we don't know yet with that as well. And I just wanted you to be aware that the activities at the park this year, there will not be activities at the park. I'm hoping with donations, and I will be sending letters out, and I'll be explaining to the businesses and those that donate that I'm hoping perhaps we can order more fireworks with that money. But we gotta make sure that we have a place for the fireworks and people to light them too. So I just wanna make sure everybody understands what's going on right now with the 4th of July. We know there's gonna be a parade. We know it'll be at 11 o'clock. We know there will be a 5K. There will be swimming at the aquatic center, but there will be a $2 fee this year. And so, if you have any questions or concerns with that, it's also hard to get volunteers. I relied on Pam a lot, and she's probably saying, whoosh. You know, and it is. It's really hard because everybody's doing their own thing. And so, we still want our celebration, but we're going to conform to it a little bit now.
All right.
Any concerns? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Any other department heads?
Wasn't planning on talking, but I didn't plan on an outage yesterday morning either. I just wanted to let you know what happened. Like I've said before, we do have the system tied together in a way that we don't normally leave it. And it's because of the rebuild work that we did down on 11 and 4th. But we were never able to finish it because of all the other projects that came up and being short-staffed. So we're gonna be working on that this spring too, to get that changed. But what happened was, out by the sheriff's office, where it goes from overhead to underground. The wind was blowing so hard that it kept rocking those wires back and forth, and one of them broke. And it swung back around like this because of the way the wire was strong or something, I don't know why. But it spun like this and got up into another phase, and it tripped out 2 of the 3 phases up there. It destroyed probably about $1,500 worth of equipment that we had to go back and replace today. And the guys had about 3 hours in that, but I mean, I was sound asleep like everybody else probably was at 4:05 in the morning, and the only reason why I woke up was because it got quiet in the house, because the fan quit running, the music would stop playing, and I'm like, got up and looked out, and so I come down to the plant, met Matt here, and I went ahead and closed it back in to see if it would hold, and it did. Then I said, well, let's go out and drive and see if we can find anything that caused this. Then I said, I'm gonna head out this way, and I went out to the sheriff's office. I thought, man, that's all, their generator's still running. So I drove back up and I looked, and there's where I found it. So,
All right, well, good work.
I'll tell you what, Sunday went by awful slow. I was so tired the rest of the day.
I'm sure. Thank you, Floyd.
Anyway,
All right, so now we're down to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I would
Oh.
like to, just with all the kudos, Virgil got, to thank him for what he's done at the Aquatic Center.
I don't think we do.
No, we didn't know.
All right,
No, not this one.
do you want to make a motion then?
Oh, so moved.
Spear with the first and Leeper with the second for adjournment.
McFeely?
Yes.
Boots?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Weaver?
And we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.